All right. Well, good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming and welcome to our first ever Facebook Live session. So we're going to be recording this session and it's going to be available on this DCAGT Facebook page, as well as the DCAGT website and the Douglas County School District website. So I am Becca Koster and I'm going to be your moderator this evening. Before we get started, I'm going to go ahead and have Heather and Natasha introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and move forward. So which of you ladies would like to go first?
I'll go ahead. I was going to say, I'll go ahead because then I can pass it off to Natasha, if that would be okay. My name is Heather Groff, and I am one of the team leads for Douglas County School District, and I work out of the district office covering 3 of our Highlands Ranch feeders. Natasha?
Great. Wonderful. Hi, I'm Natasha Strayer, and I have the privilege of serving as the Director of Advanced Academics and Gifted Programming in Douglas County School District. So we work with teachers and staff and students in surfacing and nurturing potential, which we'll talk more about tonight.
Wonderful. So because we want to honor your time, we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, I'd like to tell you a little bit about DCAGT. So DCAGT stands for Douglas County Association of Gifted and Talented, and we are a 501c3 nonprofit. We're an all-volunteer organization that is comprised of educators, community members, as well as family members who are working to foster an understanding of all gifted children. And we are an affiliate of the Colorado Association for Gifted and Talented. So we'll go ahead and move ahead, and Natasha will be presenting to you this evening.
Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. The purpose and outcome of our presentation tonight is just to provide a general overview of gifted education and programming in Douglas County School District. So I'm going to start by just reaffirming our alignment to the Douglas County School District Board of Education Priority Student Outcomes and Strategic Plan Framework. So while we have had many changes in our district over the past year, what hasn't changed is our commitment to our students and our families. And you can see here from this graphic that we are also committed inside of advanced academics and gifted education to ensure that our work is aligned to all of the strategic plan themes and also to the Board of Education priority student outcomes. The bottom 4 squares really are the frameworks or the lenses that we look at when we are working with our schools and our families and our students inside of advanced academics and gifted. And so we look through the lens of see me, understand me, teach me, and challenge me. So we know that before we can provide any kind of programming for our students, it's very important to understand that we can see and understand students from at all ages, from all races, demographic backgrounds in all of our schools. We also want to ensure that we provide our staff and our teachers and our administrators with high quality professional development so that they can meet the needs of our high ability, high potential gifted learners. And then in order to meet those needs, we need to ensure that our students have the opportunity to learn something new every day. Next slide, please. The foundations of gifted education in Douglas County School District are also aligned to the National Association for Gifted Children and the Colorado Department of Education. So the National Association for Gifted and the CDE have established definitions of gifted students, which you can see on this slide. Gifted and talented students are those students between the ages of 4 and 21 whose abilities, talents, and potential for accomplishment are so exceptional or developmentally advanced that they require special provisions to meet their educational programming needs. And while I'm not going to read both slides to you, I think it's important to understand that we do serve students pre-K-12, and that we are serving students through this definition that is aligned both nationally and at the state level. In fact, not only the definition, but the statute and the rules for implementation for gifted education live inside of the Exceptional Children's Education Act, which is also the same act that outlines the rules for implementation for special education. And this outlines, the definition outlines the areas in which we are required and outlined by that statute to identify students with exceptional needs. So in Douglas County and in the state of Colorado, students can be identified for gifted programming in general or specific intellectual ability, specific academic aptitude, which are those content areas such as math, science, and social studies. They can be identified with a strength in creative or productive thinking, leadership, and the talent areas, so visual arts, performing arts, musical, or psychomotor abilities. Currently, an overview by the numbers from our most recent October data. We have 65,000, a little more than 65,000 students K-12. The reason we don't see pre-K-12 numbers here are we're just pulling current information in alignment with our identification practices in the schools. We have over 90 plus schools. Our charter schools are included in all of this data. To date, we have 6,235 identified gifted learners, which is 9.52% of that population K-12. Out of those identified gifted learners, 424 of them are twice exceptional, which means they meet criteria for services through IDEA, through special education, and or have accommodations through a Section 504 plan. We also have 119 identified gifted English learners. So these are students who are still receiving English language development. These are our emerging bilinguals. So they're receiving English language development services or programming, and also meet state criteria for identification for gifted programming. In our work, in our team, we really are committed to equity of access to opportunity, agency, and empowerment. And our vision is to seek out, surface, and nurture potential in each student from all races, socioeconomic and cultural backgrounds, gender identities, and sexual orientations. And our mission is to continue to partner with staff, students, families, and our community to make sure that we are designing, refining, and implementing equitable and culturally sustainable systems of identification and programming for our high potential, advanced, and gifted students from each of these demographic groups in each of our schools. We're also aligned with one of the most important, I think, NAGC standards for implementation for gifted programming. And I'm sorry, I didn't say this earlier, but NAGC is the National Association for Gifted Children. So it is our national association that outlines programming standards for implementation, both working in and outside of the schools. And it's important to understand that we are committed to providing a full continuum of programming services. We know that not all identified gifted learners need the same kind of programming. And so we are committed to providing a full continuum of services in each of our schools to meet the needs, the unique needs of our gifted learners. When we talk about equity of access, I think it's really important to think about opportunity and to ground ourselves in the difference between equity and equality. So equality is leaving the door open for anyone who has the means to approach it. What we are committed to is equity, which is ensuring that there is a pathway to that door for those who need it. So that really speaks to our commitment to that equity of access to opportunity, agency, and empowerment. So we are committed to seeking out and surfacing and nurturing potential in each of our students. It's not enough just to open the door, but we need to ensure that we are providing students with the skills, the agency, the self-advocacy, and the empowerment to see themselves as successful in any of the learning endeavors that they may need, be interested in, and require as they are fulfilling their full potential. In Douglas County, we are very committed to and proud of the support structure that we've been able to grow over the last several years. So we have, I serve, as I said, as the Director of Advanced Academics and Gifted Education. We do have one program coordinator, Misty Burkhart, and she supports the direct and indirect professional development and logistics for our school contacts, our school gifted education facilitators, our general education teachers, administrators, other support staff, and our families. So she helps implement the program as a whole. We're also lucky to have 3 gifted education team leads. These team leads provide hands-on direct support to our school gifted education facilitators. Again, much like our coordinator, these 3 positions, so Jennifer Gottschalk, Michelle Oslick, and Heather Graff, who's on the call with us tonight, in a typical year, they spend 4 days out of the week physically in schools. We're still figuring out how to make that feasible while maintaining our commitment to the safety of our staff and our students. So this year we've been doing a lot of instructional coaching and support via creative channels such as Zoom and Google Meets. But these three positions really provide that direct instructional coaching 4 days a week in schools with students and staff. So they provide training for our teachers, our administrators. They will often co-teach and support teachers in serving students and helping increase their skills. They also work with administrators to ensure that we have equitable access to opportunities for all of our students, and we're implementing equitable identification practices as we seek out and surface that potential in students. We support feeder gifted education leads. So every feeder and our charter schools have one person who serves as a gifted education facilitator at their school, and then also is our liaison between that school or region, the schools in that region or feeder, and our team. So they are invaluable in helping us determine what kinds of support the general education teachers need, support staff need, how we can provide training, and we can provide systems and structures specific to the needs of their particular feeder and region. And then we also are very lucky this year to support gifted education facilitators in each school, including our high schools. This is the first year that we've been able to provide FTE specific to gifted education at the high school level. And we are thrilled with the skills of the facilitators that have applied for and been placed in that role. So every school in the district has a gifted education facilitator who is really the hands-on direct support for our students and our families. And they also provide professional learning opportunities for all of our teachers and staff to meet the unique needs of our gifted learners in our schools. Our gifted education facilitators they help us maintain our commitment to keep identification and programming as close to the student as possible. We know that they are the ones who know you as families, they know our students, and they know the teachers who are serving our students. So our gifted education facilitators really are our eyes and ears and service providers. They're our frontline workers, so to speak, in programming, in seeking out, surfacing, and nurturing potential. And then we also have elementary discovery program teachers. So we do have a Facebook Live coming up to talk about our discovery program. It's a center-based, self-contained program that we house at 3 of our elementary schools for students in grades 2 through 6 who need a level of differentiation that's not really feasible to deliver through a general education setting. And so we support elementary discovery program teachers in each of those 3 sites. And these teachers do provide services for students who need all day, every day intensive programming in order to meet their social, emotional, and academic needs. And we just want to end this portion with our commitment and just an honorary shout out to Ruth Bader Ginsburg and the work that she did in our country. But I love this graphic because this is where we try to lead from in our work with schools and with you and our students. And this is a nice thing to remind our students too, that the big three in leadership and success in life are human kindness, smarts, and grit. And so I think this is a nice graphic to end with, that these are the things that we are trying to grow, not only in our teachers and our teacher leaders, but also in our future leaders who are our students.
Coming opportunities with you. First, DCAGT will be hosting their board meeting on Thursday this week, the 5th, from 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Those meetings will also occur in January and in March. We also have another Facebook Live. It will be next Wednesday, November 11th from 6 to 7 p.m. And we will be talking with Michelle Oslick, who is our team lead, my partner in crime at the district. And we are going to be having some parents and students as well for a panel. Then we have conversations with CAGT, which CAGT is our state gifted group, so a advocacy group. So it's Colorado Association for Gifted and Talented. And every Tuesday they have different speakers at 5 o'clock. The first half is a presentation, and then the other half is Q&A. And then finally on November 19th, which is a Thursday, we will have our advisory council, which we affectionately call DCAGT, Douglas County Gifted Education Advisory Council meeting. And that is from 6 to 8 p.m. It is a virtual meeting, so you can watch our website for a link or contact us directly if you'd like to get more information. And then our contact information, the gifted.education at DCSDK12.org will come directly to our office if you have any general questions. And then these are all the people in our office. Many of you may meet Christina Levesque, our wonderful administrative assistant who just helps us with everything. In fact, she may be one of the most important people on our team. And then all of the other people that Natasha has already listed, we all have our phone numbers, and you can contact us if you would like to.
Well, thank you so much, Natasha and Heather. We're now going to open it up for questions. So please drop your questions into the comments, and I'll read the questions to our speakers, and we'll try to get to as many as possible. So while you're forming your questions, I'm going to go ahead and put a link to a survey in the chat so that you can let us know what we can do to better serve your needs and the needs of your families. So hold on just 1 second while I get that. And please go ahead and put your questions in the chat. All right. Here we go.
While we're waiting for some questions, I think some things that I can circle back to and provide a little additional information about that may trigger some questions or generate some questions, I should say. I want to talk a little bit about what that programming might look like inside of our schools. I think that's a question that we get quite often, don't you think, Heather? About what might parents expect for gifted programming in the schools? And it, like I said, we are very committed to keep all of our components of gifted education, advanced academics, and gifted education as close to the students as possible. So while the delivery may look very different at each of our schools, each school does have opportunities for gifted learners to work together with their likability peers. We know that one of the things we hear directly from our gifted learners is that they want time and they need time to interact with, think with, participate with students who are their peers, who may think like them and have some of the same unique needs. So you can see that in some of our elementary schools cluster group their students for certain periods of the day. Many of our elementary schools also offer enrichment or flooding time, in which the gifted education facilitator will partner with the general education teachers to provide enrichment or additional differentiated opportunities for students. At all levels, our GT facilitators collaborate with classroom teachers to help them differentiate to meet the needs of our gifted learners, both social, emotionally, and academically. So that could look like a combination of co-teaching and collaboration. There might be some pull out and push in with the GT facilitators or other support staff. As students age up into our middle schools and our high schools, obviously there are different opportunities for course selection and course opportunities. Advanced placement is only one of those options. We do have honors and advanced placement classes. We also have many opportunities in the arts and in CTE or continuing education opportunities at the high school level. So we work very hard to continue to broaden that spectrum of programming options and also to remove the barriers for students to enter into and be successful in those opportunities.
Thank you very much, Natasha. And we do have some questions. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one we received. It's from Rachel. So Rachel says, my son is in kindergarten and he's e-learning. I'm concerned about collecting a sufficient body of evidence for his application to Discovery next year. What should I be documenting to support the application if necessary?
So first, thank you so much for the question. We will have more specific information about the Discovery Program application process. So I invite you to tune into that Facebook Live next week and also to explore the resources on our website. I do want to clarify that our Discovery Program in Douglas County is designed for students in grades 2 through 6. So if your child is in kindergarten, while you may be working with a GT facilitator at your child's school and the kindergarten teacher to begin to build that body of evidence, students, you would not actually apply for the program until this time next year when your child is in first grade. So the application window opens in the fall, the year before the child, your son, I think you said, would enter into second grade. So I would say at this point, your first point of contact is to work with the gifted education facilitator at your child's school and to think about building that body of evidence through the work that your child is already doing, either with that GT facilitator and with the general education teachers. And they'll be able to point you in the direction to think about artifacts and things you can build in that body of evidence to see how he responds to the instructional programming. All of our students in the e-learning environment are connected to the gifted education facilitator at their neighborhood school. And those facilitators are available to support you in that conversation with the e-learning teacher.
All right. Thank you very much, Natasha. Our next question is from Sally. How will the projected district budget cuts affect GT programming?
Sally, that is a great question. And thank you for that question. We are not sure at this point how the projected state, and I'm going to start with state budget cuts because that's where we start when we're looking at school finance. So none of us are sure exactly how those cuts are going to affect any of our programming. What I do know and I can speak to is even through this first year of budget cuts at both the state and the district level, our Board of Education has been very committed to maintaining their support for gifted programming in each of our schools. across the district. We also know at this point that our funding at the state level has not been cut for our state categorical funding specific to special programs such as gifted education. So I really can't answer that question in full at this point until I know overall what the budget cuts will be, and we're engaging in those conversations. I'm engaging in those conversations both at the state and the district level as we speak, as I present, and I will know more information about that in the upcoming months. I would encourage you to advocate for maintaining gifted programming in Douglas County and in the state of Colorado. And I would also encourage you to tune into our Board of Education meetings and to just remind our Board of Education how important that programming is. But I will say that they have been very committed to ensuring that we continue our work to meet the needs of these very special students and all of our students.
Thank you very much. So one quick update is we are granting permission to the survey right now. So just hold on just a second and you should be able to get permission. All right, so then back to question and answers. Our next questions is from Amy, and she says, sometimes gifted and talented kids have unique needs on the social emotional spectrum. How do your programs address those?
Right, that's such an important question, Amy. We know that all students have unique social emotional needs, and we've been working really hard as a district to ensure that we have and that we are implementing an SEL, a social emotional learning curriculum, across all of our schools. That's something we heard loud and clear from our parent community as we developed our strategic plan, is that we needed to ensure that we had social emotional learning and a commitment to the mental health and wellness of our students embedded in every strand and every theme of our strategic plan. In addition to that, and specific to our high potential advanced gifted learners, we have worked to create structures to collaborate at the district and the school level with our mental health providers, including our counselors. Many of our schools are implementing support groups or small groups, in addition to embedding the professional development and professional learning specifically to some of the common unique needs of our high potential gifted learners in the areas of their social emotional wellness. So we have some small group support. We're continually partnering with our counselors at all levels to ensure that we're deepening our understanding of what those needs are and how we can best meet those needs. In many cases, we are providing, and please look out for this, providing learning opportunities for unique needs for our twice exceptional learners, to our families and communities so that they have resources. And we are, like I said, as we have increased our gifted education facilitator staff, we are very lucky to have many gifted education facilitators who have deep background in mental health and wellness. So some of our new gifted education facilitators that joined us this year, in their previous or in their profession, have served as school psychologists, as school social workers, both in the clinical field and in the school. So we have been really working with them, especially in this time, to increase our understanding of how we can meet those needs both in a face-to-face and a virtual environment. So those are some of the small group opportunities, connecting in with learning opportunities so that students can understand themselves and advocate for their needs is also an important part of what you might see. Heather, do you want to add anything to that based on your specific work?
No, I think you covered that really well. We have been doing professional development for the past 2 years with our counselors as well. And they are also in the process of reaching out to the GT facilitators now as things come up with students. So I think that's
right. And I think the most important piece is the work that we're doing at the school level to help support building systems of collaboration inside of the school so that our gifted education facilitators have time that is set aside to make sure that they are connecting with and working with the mental health support staff at the school to identify what these unique needs might be, and then also to respond to them in a proactive way and not a reactive way. But certainly our GT facilitators are included in some of the problem-solving teams at each of our schools that include the mental health support staff.
Wonderful, thank you. So our next question is from Ishmeet. What kind of opportunities do you have for profoundly gifted children while keeping them with their peer groups?
That's a great question, Ishmeet. Thank you for asking that. So it depends on what your definition of profoundly gifted is. There are some different definitions floating around in the national and international conversation about profoundly gifted. But if we speak about highly gifted students, so those students who have unique needs outside of even your students, if we're speaking in terms of atypical learners, are 1 to 2 to 3 standard deviations away from the norm. If you're talking in metrics that we use to talk about profoundly gifted, we're talking about 3 standard deviations from the norm. What we have in our schools at the elementary level right now is the Discovery Program. So as I said, our Discovery Program is a center-based gifted program that's embedded in 3 of our neighborhood schools. So while those students are grouped together by need in each of their core subjects, they're oftentimes with their age peers from other classes in activities outside of that academic learning time. In the Discovery Program, those classes are taught by teachers who are certified and endorsed, and many of them have deep expertise and background in gifted education. We also ensure that the students in the Discovery Program have additional mental health support and social emotional learning support. But at the elementary level, that is the program that we have for our highly gifted learners. At the middle school, we do not have a specific program that's designed for highly gifted or profoundly gifted learners. However, we are working with our middle school staff, and many of our middle schools are starting to cluster group those students by need, not just in their academic core classes, but across the day, so that we can provide targeted and intensive services for them, while also allowing them to be with their age peers in other areas outside of academics. At the high school level, we work really closely with our high school staff to provide academic opportunities and social emotional learning opportunities, sometimes in concurrent enrollment options. Sometimes we have dual enrollment, which means students may be, this is for middle school, enrolled at a middle school and also participating in classes at the high school level. We have students we have many students in all of our high schools who are participating in concurrent enrollment. So they are with their age peers in a high school setting, or in a typical high school setting, or in an e-learning setting, and then also being served through classes at the collegiate level in areas of need. So those are some of the opportunities that we have for our highly gifted learners.
All right, thank you again, Natasha. So our next question is from Lori, and she asks, I know some grades are required to take the COGAT, and families can request to have their children take the COGAT. How do e-learners taking the COGAT, how will this be proctored? Like, what's the process?
So at this point in time, in this first window, for a variety of reasons, we're facilitating our universal screening. So universal screening using the COGAT is part of our commitment to equitable identification practices. It's a highly recommended practice by national leaders and the state to ensure that our identification practices are not just they don't just rely on nomination, so to speak, but we are using a universal screen. to surface that potential and identify unique learning needs of our students. So that is the COGAT as part of that universal screening. In this first window in November, we are facilitating our first universal screen for our students who are in their last year of elementary school. So we participate, we offer universal screening at the second grade level and also the fifth or sixth grade level, whatever is the last year of elementary school, to ensure that we really are casting a broad net and seeking out that potential in students. At this point in time, we are going to wait and have our e-learners participate in our universal screening window in the spring, which is when we typically do universal screening for our second graders. And at that time, we hope to have a structure so that we can offer opportunities for our e-learners to either come to the school or come to some secure testing sites to be administered the COGAT at a school site or at a site that is safe for them. If you are a family and your child is immune compromised and cannot leave your house or participate in universal screening at that level, we will work with you to ensure that your child has an opportunity to take the COGAT and or to continue the identification practice and continue to build that body of evidence. So this is where I want to say it's really important to remember that the cognitive abilities test through that universal screen is an important piece of a body of evidence, but it is not the identifier. So it's really important to understand that it is both our statutorial and moral and ethical obligation to build an entire body of evidence before we're identifying students or in the process of identifying students for gifted education. So the COGAT is not the end all and be all. It's not, you can't miss it by one test score or 1 point on one test on one day. So while it is an important part of our identification for gifted programming, it is only one part of an entire body of evidence. So if your child is not able to participate in the COGAT through universal screening in this November because of his age or because he or she is an e-learner, that does not preclude you from initiating or beginning the gifted identification process. So you may refer your child for evaluation for gifted identification at any time in the school year, and it is not dependent on one test score on one day. So if your child is in that situation, I would encourage you to reach out as soon as possible to the gifted education facilitator at your child's elementary school to begin that process. And then he or she can walk you through the next steps in the gifted identification process. And then we will also be providing more information about e-learning and the COGAT after, actually before winter break, and then after winter break in January and February.
All right, thank you so much. So it looks like we don't have any more questions. I think we'll give it a moment in case somebody has something else that sparked. And I am going to go ahead and put a link in the comments to the gifted education facilitator listing so that those of you watching and listening are able to just click on that link and get that. So as I do that, if there are any additional questions, go ahead and type them in the comments box.
I'm just, Becca, I'm looking back because I'm watching the questions come in on my phone because my kids have taught me so much about multiple screens. So I just want to circle back with Lori to see if I answered her question correctly, or if she needs additional information.
Oh,
if she's still there.
I see that she commented back. Yes, I have 3 others on ALPs, and my kindies teacher has already reached out for the facilitator. Thanks again.
Okay, great. Perfect.
That's wonderful. Thank you so much, Lori, for joining us this evening. And thank you to everyone who's joined us. So with that, I don't see any additional questions. I do want to thank each and every one of you for joining us this evening at our first Facebook Live session. We hope you found this information really helpful. We want to provide you with the information that you are seeking. So next week on Wednesday at 6 o'clock, we are going to have another Facebook Live, and we're going to be talking about DCSD's full-time gifted programming option, the Discovery Program. So if you haven't completed our survey, please do so. We'd really appreciate it. We hope everybody has a great evening. Thank you so much to Heather and Natasha for joining us and providing us with such valuable information. So everybody, I hope you have a really great evening, and we hope to see you next week. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you all so much for being here tonight.
All right. Good night, everyone.